Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Saturday of chatting. I'll do it on Monday. Little podcast, little brew drinking session. Today we are here with Tecate Light. Right, last weekend we were sipping that Pacifico. Right, that Pacifico had a nice touch. I drank a 12 pack of that, and I gotta say it was good. It was no hangover the next day, no headaches, no cruda. Good beer. I'm going out later today, and the place where I'm going out only has Tecate Light, so I gotta drink the same beer all night, right? So let's start with Tecate Light. Salud. Mm. Okay, let's start with today's topics. There are 5 topics that I want to touch on in this hour and a half. And well, the first one kind of has to do with I got my little fan right here because it's fucking hot right now. Yeah, but the first topic that I want to touch on this segment, second segment of I'll do it on Monday, is repent, right? And well, I'm reading this book. It's called The Science of Speech, and it's by this like Indian guy, and he actually has 2 books out on PDF on Google. I recommend that you check them out if you haven't uh, checked them out. One of them is called The Science of Speech, and the other one, The Fault is of the Sufferer. In The Fault is of the Sufferer, he just basically talks about how anything that happens to you is like you paying for a past karma, right? Like I guess you could understand your past karma like either in your past lives or maybe like in your past just in general, right? Like you're paying for a karma. And when you suffer, it's your fault. So he says even if you get robbed and you're suffering, it's your fault. When they catch the thief or when the thief, you know, whatever happens to that thief later on, that will be his fault. But in that moment, it's your fault. And the other book that he has, The Science of Speech, well, he kind of talks about all these different types of concepts as well. But a concept that he touches on a lot is this thing called practikraman, practic, practikraman, and practikraman means like any time that like the book is structured kind of like Socrates. I believe he the Socrates dialogue kind of went like this, where a person would ask a question and the master, the teacher, would answer, and it was like a question answer, and it was kind of like a dialogue. And this book is kind of structured like that. It's kind of like a dialogue the whole way through. And then like the questioner, right, like the student asks like, what should I do if, for example, I don't know, something happens and I insult somebody, or I think bad things about that person, or I wish bad on that person, or whatever. And the master, or this guy, he's just like, oh yeah, like he gives this brief explanation, but he's always like, you have to do practikraman, you have to do practikraman, right? And the whole time you're just like, okay, practikraman kind of sounds like practice, like what do I have to practice? And then eventually, like he says, all you have to do is repent and say that you won't do it again, and ask God for the strength to not do it again, right? And I think, at least for me, this hits me pretty hard because we live in times where not only are you not sorry, but you're gonna do it again. So like if I wish death on somebody, right? Or if I'm in traffic and I fucking yell at somebody like fuck you and I beep at them, I'm not gonna say sorry because not only am I not gonna say sorry, I know I'm gonna do it to some other bitch ass motherfucker down down the road, right? Or later on in the day. So we live in very cynical times. Everybody's very cynical. Everybody thinks they know. Everybody thinks they know things and they know how to live, yet they keep fucking up. They make mistakes. We and I am included in this. And we all feel like shit, right? We all constantly feel like shit about what we're doing. We're not happy. But if you tell somebody like, hey, you have to repent, you know, you're kind of like, what? Like, how am I going to repent? Mm. So, um, and this is going to kind of contradict the second thing I'm going to talk about, which is actually something. See, here I'm going to kind of try to structure my ideas with you live like this. So it's something that is cynical, yet I think is true. I'm a believer in God. So I think that you do have to repent, and you do have to say that you're going to not do it again, and you do have to ask God for the strength to not do it again. Now, if you want to be a realist and a cynical and say, yeah, you're gonna fuck up again, okay, but you still have to repent, right? I think it's important, because I'm gonna give you an example. This week, right? I saw this. I read about this just this week. Everything I'm gonna talk about here today, I've read about it just this week. And just this week, also, I was in traffic, right? And I'm gonna talk about that later on too. But there was this guy, right? That he cut me off in traffic, right? And I ride a motorcycle, so mm, I don't know if they car drivers have like some beef with motorcyclists because they say that we're crazy and we, like we're all over the place. I'm not really like that. Sometimes I can, but I make sure that, that I don't put anyone in danger. So I'm just there, behind this other car, minding my own business. And then there's a car to the side of me that gets into the area between the car in front of me and I. And he's good because there's space, so he gets in there. And then the car behind him on the other side also tries to do the same thing. So this motherfucker basically like comes right next to me, right? And I have to move. I have to maneuver to get out of his way. And while I'm maneuvering, I fucking, because I have the I honk my horn with my finger. So I honk the horn at him, but like, like I stay, it stays pressed, be, like, you motherfucker. And he gets in, right? And I get behind him. And then like we're going on the same road. And then he eventually jumps to the other lane, to the right lane. And I'm able to get like right by him, right? And he has his window open, his window down, and he's just sitting there kind of looking ashamed. I look at him and I just tell him, because he was going to go like off the highway to the other side, and I was gonna go straight. And I tell him, "Correle, pendejo," like you like fucking run, bitch ass motherfucker, And he saw me and he heard me. But when I saw him, I got this vibe of him, like kind of ashamed, like he knew he fucked up. And I sped away, right? And then like I thought about it, and then I said, and I remember the repent thing, and I was like, are you sorry you did that? Are you gonna say you're not gonna do it again, and ask God for the strength not to do it again? And I was like, yeah. I said, I told God, because practicaraman says that you have to say it. Even if it's in your head, you have to, because if you don't do it, eventually you're gonna be the one that's gonna fuck up in traffic, because we all make mistakes. I fucked up in traffic before. You make a mistake, someone fucking beeps at you and calls you a fucking dumbass, and you're just like, fuck, man, I'm sorry, like I fucked up. So, so Practicraman tries to cut off your bad karma. You do something and that bad thing is gonna come back. It's twofold, right? It's gonna come back at you. So yeah, I said, I'm sorry, God, perdóname, Dios. No lo vuelvo a hacer. I'm not gonna do it again. And give me the strength not to do it again, right? And and then you might say, well, you're lying. You're lying. What do you mean you're not gonna do it again? You're gonna do it again. You're gonna do it again. And it's like, yeah, cynical ass, but you still have to repent. You still you have to repent, because and even if you do it again and you do it again, you have to repent. That's why God exists, right? And then I also think, because lately I'm praying every day like a Muslim. Like, a Muslim needs to pray 5 times a day. I pray like every chance I get, every time I'm on the road, right? When do you pray? You pray when you're in danger, when you're in a tough situation, right? You even if you're atheist, you're probably like, yeah, God, I need your help. Why wait until you're in a tough situation? Why not pray every day? Why not celebrate God every day, right? I don't mean this to be religious, because I'm about to go into the next topic, and it's going to kind of be like, what? And sometimes the religious side of you doesn't make sense with the like realist reality or real life side of you, right? That goes out to work every day, that deals with people. Um, but I don't think God is. I don't think religion, or I don't think your spiritual side is something to be reasoned with, right? I think it's more emotional. You have to feel it. I mean, I remember that I saw that there are people that believe in God, and then there are people that don't believe in God, and some of them say, I don't believe in God. I've tried, but I can't, or I don't believe in Him because I've never felt Him. You know, and if you tell me that, I'm like, damn, that's I can't argue with that. That's deep, because if you've never felt Him and you're convinced that He's not real for you, I respect that. But you know, like, respect me, because I've felt Him. I've been in tough situations. I've felt Him. He's been there for me. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to chat about. Repent, ask for forgiveness, say you won't do it again, and ask for the strength to not do it again. Right now, we're gonna get philosophical now. The next point I want to touch on is by the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, or Nietzsche. And I'm reading his book. I think I read this on Monday or Tuesday also, and it was kind of like, whoa, like mind blowing. Let's start the week off strong and finish off strong, right? So in his book, Beyond Good and Evil, or Más allá del bien y del mal in Spanish, he talks about, I think people that have studied Nietzsche know about his will of power, and I think I've even heard about the will of power, right? People have said, "Oh yeah, the will of power," and whatever. And you hear will and power, and you kind of get it. You're like, well, yeah, you have to have the will, and then you get power or something like that, right? That's associated. But I think I understood it from a different perspective, or maybe I understood it in terms that I hadn't understood it before. And the will to power for me up to now, he there's this part where he just starts. Nietzsche is credited for being one of those like radical modern thinkers, right? Kind of from our time, where he was just like, society is messed up, society is bad, they're not thinking, right? And I wasn't really too fond of Nietzsche, because he's so popular among philosophers, right? I prefer like Sartre, or yeah, like other philosophers that aren't really that famous. Um, I guess the only one I really like is Sartre, and but yeah, Nietzsche is like the most famous philosopher, so I wasn't really like into him. But lately, I started reading his books, because I was kind of like, well, everybody talks about him, and everybody says that Nietzsche is really hard to understand. And he says that, well, Jordan Peterson explained it by one of his phrases, that he says he's philosophizing with a hammer, right? So you're basically destroying like beliefs. Like he's a deconstructionist, right? So he deconstructs ideas. Like you give him like religion and he just breaks it down, right? And that's Nietzsche, right? He's a deconstructionist. So he says that people nowadays, um, like there was a time in history where moral came into play, right? Like good and evil, right? Like you're either good or you're bad. You do bad things or you do good things. Before that, people were just like, doing whatever the fuck they wanted. Mm, he credits some of that to religion, but he says that nowadays we we evaluate people on something that's called procedencia. Procedencia is like your intention, right? So if you have a good intention, but you do something bad, you're still going to be evaluated as good, right? So like, and that the intention thing has to do with moral, obviously. Like, oh, his intentions were good, but he fucked up. So he's a good person, even though he fucked up. Excuse me. And he says that before, people used to actually take into consideration something that he calls consequences, effects, right? What does this really generate? What does this really create, right? So let's say that someone's late and they say, I don't know, oh, I meant to be here on time, but traffic, or I got caught up with something, or they make up excuses, right? And you're like, okay, his intention was good, or her intention was good. They meant to arrive on time, they just couldn't. So let's forgive them, right? That's kind of what people push to do, right? They push to be evaluated by their intention, not their consequence, not their result, not their effects. What's the effect of arriving late? I don't know. If you're working at some company that maybe bases all their results on productivity, low productivity, right? Productivity is affected, especially if everyone's doing it all the time. So that's the consequence. The consequence is bad. And Nietzsche says that somewhere along the line, society shifted from evaluating people based on what happened, based off what they did, to what they intended to do. And it is fucked up, because this goes back to what I was talking about last weekend with the I'll do it later mentality, right? The people that have the I'll do it later or I'll do it on Monday mentality, have this good intention, and they think that they can get away with doing stupid shit and bad shit and incorrect shit just by having a good intention, right? They say, my intention was good. I meant to arrive on time. I meant to do this, but this happened, and it's like, no, bitch. Like the consequence is bad, so you're bad, right? So Nietzsche says that we should actually go back to evaluating people based on what they do, based on the outcomes of their actions, right? Not their intentions. So morale or moral is actually, kind of, like an excuse for people that make mistakes, or that just fuck up, that are bad people, right? Because I don't think there's gonna be someone that makes a mistake and they're gonna be like, oh yeah, like I meant to make the mistake, or even to say, I'm sorry, I apologize, it won't happen again. Repent, right? We go back to the first point. And this is kind of where like I read the first thing about the repenting thing, first, and then I read the niche thing, and then I was kind of like, whoa, why are these two ideas like here? Are they peleándose? Are they peleadas? Because repent says that your intention has to be um you know like you won't do it again. But what if you do it again, right? Because repenting is an intention. Repenting is moral, right? Um, so you got to like really watch out with the results that you're doing, that with the real actions that you're putting out into the world, right? Mm, so here it says, my intention is good, so that means I'm good, and that's kind of like how people reason, right? And the will to power is like kind of rising above that and saying, I'm not going to base myself off my stupid intention. I'm going to actually do you know I'm going to actually base myself off the consequences of my results, right? Is my productivity higher? Am I actually arriving on time when my intention is to arrive on time, right? Like I was talking about last week, I got these things pending, and these motherfuckers are just dando alas, not doing their shit, not doing their work, and making up excuses and shit, and they think they can get away with the intention part, right? Like my intention is to get the work done, but I'm not getting the work done. And it's like, so you think that just because your intention is good, I should just like not push your ass to fucking get the job done. So um yeah, because you're basing yourself off your actions, right? So I think here it's 50-50. I don't think we should be I don't think we should ignore the repenting thing, because you do have to repent, right? But I think that's more on a personal level. When you're actually dealing with people, and more in productive societies like we live in, you actually have to give results. People that make excuses, people that only have good intentions but don't deliver, get the fuck out of my face, right? Get out of here. That's not going to work for me. And you have to just start discriminating. You have to start filtering these motherfuckers out, right? Um, so I want to talk to you about the third point, which is procrastination, right? This week I also watched this video. Mm, It was actually a TED Talk. Um, it's by Tim Urban, and Tim Urban spoke about motivation. Um, No, I'm sorry. He didn't speak about motivation. That was another video I did this week on motivation. He spoke about procrastination. And I think I had seen this video somewhere out there before, recommended to me or some shit. And I was just like, you know what? I'm a big hater of procrastination. I don't believe in that shit. I don't like people that believe in procrastination, right? That I'll do it tomorrow mentality, put it off for next week, that I'll do it on Monday mentality, right? That's procrastination. And I think the title of this TED Talk by Tim Urban is something like how procrastinators' brains work, and like how I thought it was gonna be something about like how they're more creative, and how waiting for the last moment to do things is like the best shit, and like people should because I'm totally against that. When I was in college, if I had an assignment due next week, I was probably getting it done that day, and doing other shit with my time during the week, instead of like because he says that what procrastinators do is that they say like, okay, I'm gonna distribute, I'm gonna organize my times, and if I have something due next week, I'm gonna start doing a little bit of it like every day so I could get it done. But then they start putting it off, like instead of working 7 days, they start working 6 days, or they'll say they'll work six days, but they haven't even worked a day. And then they say I'll work 5 days, they haven't even worked a day. And they'll do that until they have a day left, and they have all the work they have to do that on that last day. And um and that's just sloppy. They do bad work. um they're not really, how can I say it, they're not really contributing to society, right? So I watched it because I saw this thing on Twitter that said like the best 10 TED Talks online or on YouTube. So I was like, all right, let me check it out. I want to see what this is, what all this is about. And I think one of the first ones was this procrastinator shit, right? So I'm like watching it and listening to it, and Tim Urban is just basically he didn't romanticize. I kind of like that. He actually explained how a procrastinator's brain works. That's what the title of the TED Talk is. So he says that procrastinators have. He says that we have two. Well, he kind of like shows an animation of it, and he says we have like a reason person in our brain who's like handling the steering wheel or whatever, and he's like and that's the person that makes decisions based on the things that we need to do, right? We need to do this, so we do it. And he says then we have a monkey, and when the monkey takes a hold of the wheel, the monkey just does whatever the fuck they want, right? Like, and that's the procrastinator monkey. And I guess the only time that they work, like the only time that you actually get the monkey to give over control to the reasonable person in the brain is when he says something appears in your head that's called the panic monster. And the panic monster is this like crazy monster that comes out and is basically like, it's due tomorrow. You have to do it tomorrow. You have to do it in 1 hour. Panic, right? And that's the procrastinator life. The procrastinator life is putting off shit until the last minute. And then right before you have to do it, right before you have to turn it in, right before you have to arrive or be there, you panic and you rush to get everything done, and then you turn in a sloppy work or you deliver sloppy work. And he says that, you know I don't know how people can live like that. A lot of people live like that. And the panic monster kind of relates to like the threat, right? And Jordan Peterson, I think I spoke about this the last time, last Saturday. um the threat works better than reward, right? So if you threaten somebody and punishing them, they will get the job done faster and better than if you reward them, right? That's why I think the experiment was done with rats, where rats ran faster through the labyrinth when they were running from something than when they were going towards something like a piece of cheese. I forget what they were running from, but they ran faster. They were able to solve. They were able to go through the maze quicker when they were running from something, right? So the panic monster is this threat that people feel, right? Like, oh shit, my boss is gonna fire me. I'm gonna get in trouble. My teacher's gonna fail me, etc. If I don't get this shit done, and they feel that, and that gets them to do the work, right? Mm, so then, pretty interesting. You may say, well, what's the problem with that? Why can't there be a person? Why can't there be people like me, for example, that are highly efficient, that get shit done when they say they're gonna do it, right? That don't procrastinate and get shit done. And why can't there be procrastinators? People that say I'm gonna do it, but they don't do it, but they eventually get it done when the panic monster kicks in, right? And he says the problem with this is that the panic monster only appears when there's a deadline. So it's kind of interesting. He says we're all procrastinating because we all have things that we want to do, for example, or maybe we need to do, but we're not doing. And if you really think about it, yeah, there are things that we all want to do. That I want to exercise. I want to. So he says with these type of things that I guess they're not imposed on us, and they're kind of up to our own free will, our will of power, right? those type of things aren't going to get done because we're gonna keep procrastinating, and the panic monster is never gonna show up and be like, oh hey, you need to turn it in now, or in the next hour, or so we really just put it off for later. We'll put it off for next week. We'll put it off for next month, next year, whatever. And I find that interesting, right? Like um, you can be like very efficient, but you're still gonna have some things that you're not gonna be able to really achieve. And well, that's with people that are efficient. But what about people that already procrastinate? If you have a procrastinator and their panic monster never kicks in, basically with the things that they're not with the things that they're not obligated to do, they're not going to do them because they don't have a deadline for them, right? So that could be called like the deadline problem. Excuse me. You either have a deadline or you don't. um so yeah, wanted to report on that. And okay, now we're going to get a little bit personal. I want to talk about the fourth point, the social dilemma. mm, so for me, um the social dilemma basically goes into my personal wants. Like I spoke in the last, how can I say it? The last I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it on Monday episode. I spoke about how I was trying to network, right? I was trying to create a network and trying to look for people because currently I really don't have like friends in the city where I'm at. I don't really connect with people. People are kind of weird. Like they don't get me, I don't get them. We're just kind of like that. And it's not even that we don't have like the same interests, right? Like I already mentioned it in the other episode. It's actually that they're not committed. Like if I say let's do something, like for example with my partner, right? Like we've been talking about this project for like a while now, but nobody has done anything, right? He like I saw him this week and he even laughed. He's like, "Yeah, we'll get it done." And he laughed, and I laughed too because I'm like, "Yeah, we haven't done anything, right?" It was funny, but we're not doing anything. And he's probably like one of the people that I know that would actually like kind of work. He kind of has integrity. He'll do what he says he's gonna do. But I mean, other than him, people are really just like, they don't care. They just want to have fun, uh, do nothing, right? Procrastinate. um I don't know, they're in their own shit, they're in their own world. But what I want, and this is kind of something that I need to work through, because I think when people say you need to overcome your past, you need to heal old wounds, you need to close cycles, you need to, overcome your past traumas, your childhood traumas. It's a very complicated thing to do because, it's like, so do I have to just forget about it? And they're like, no. And then you're like, am I supposed to just bear that cross and live with it? And they're like, no. And what I've come to kind of understand in my 31 years in this life, and in this past like couple of years, is that you have to recognize your past for what it is, right? You have to see your past as it was. It was good, it was bad, there were good parts, there were bad parts. I have traumas. This traumatized me. Even in your young adulthood, maybe there were things that happened that you were traumatized by. You have to recognize all those things, and then I think you have to select what things work for you, what things you can integrate, and what things you need to let go. And the things you need to let go of, like for example anger, right? I have a problem with anger. You need to you're not gonna let it go, like eliminate forever and get out of here. You know, you're still gonna have it there, but you need to kind of distance it away from you a little bit, and only use it when it's really necessary, right? And you need to actually create like better habits, like better communication, being more assertive, speaking up when you need to speak up, so you don't explode by holding shit in, right? Like it's like that was in my case. So I think I have this trauma with like groups. I have structured my life so that I'm alone, basically, right? I'm isolated from society. In a way, I like that because it gives me time to read, to study, to do my own thing, right? To be by myself, to enjoy my free time, and I like that. But I also miss being around people, right? That's my social dilemma. I want to have, and not just like one or two friends, like I want to have a big group of people where we do things, we hang out, we go out. I think not only in Mexico, but I think in general, because Mexico is more like a family type of society. So if you're not family, you're really not going to be kicking it with like other families or things like that. Friends are kind of like a distance type of thing. Like, oh yeah, like I know my friends, but we're not really like this, like in the States. And then I also think another thing that happened is that after the pandemic, everybody just got kind of lazy. Everybody's just kind of like chilling. They're not really worried about, going out, making friends, partying, all this type of stuff. And I'm not even talking about partying. I'm talking about, working towards common goals. Like if someone's like, let's work on a book together. Let's work on making social media content creators. Let's make like this teacher thing that I'm trying to do on TikTok right now. Collaborate, things like that. I would love to do that, man. I love a beer just as much as I love a cup of coffee. So I could just, grab a cup of coffee, sit down, chat, work on some stuff. That'd be awesome. Get a group of people going, network, like I mentioned. Mm. So this week I was going to my Gnosis classes, and Gnosis is a kind of esoteric. They do esoteric teachings. So far, we've looked at like some psychological concepts, how to be more conscious, how to be more aware, how to use the elements in your favor, like the water element, the earth element, your emotions, how to move like the water. How, for me, the water is like a big thing I got to work on because it's the thing that allows you to move, right? And sometimes for me, it's kind of hard, especially as a tourist, to kind of move along things. So in the one of the teachings this week, we saw, and sometimes like I had seen this before, but sometimes all things uh reappear when you need them, kind of like it did for me this week. And one of the teachings was like, there's we all know that there's a this is from Hegel, I believe, the philosopher. We all know there's a thesis, there's an antithesis, and then there's a synthesis, right? And he said if the conscious knows that for everything that you see, the opposite can be true, then it kind of balances the mind, you know, and it allows peace, equilibrium. Um, so I think if you see that there are two sides to every story, like right now, I'm gonna go back to the example of the traffic. Um, so this week I was in traffic, right? And traffic is a very, especially where I live, it's a very stressful thing. There are a lot of cars on the road. They're fixing up the roads and shit, and it's a fucking disaster. And I mean, just today there was, people are fighting. I think yesterday or 2 days ago, I saw this like taxi and this van, and the taxi driver gets out and he starts bitching at the van driver and shit. This other guy some other day was there was this like traffic guy that he was like signaling people to, go or stop. And this guy from this other car, I think he was an Uber, he gets out and he starts going like this. So I'm like, what the fuck you want, bitch? And shit like that. But like in Spanish, he wanted to fuck him up or fight him. And yeah, traffic's really stressful right now. Not really stressful. I don't want to say stressful because I don't want to, manifest that. I don't want that to become my reality. But it's interesting, right? To say the least. And well, what was happening this week at the beginning of the week actually was that I was riding through traffic, right? And people would do things like this, like the thing, not as bad as what this guy did that I mentioned earlier, but people were doing things, right? Like they drive, out of the lane, they kind of drive between the two lanes. So you're kind of like, are you gonna fucking move so I can pass you or what? And or they drive slow, they drive fast right by you, there's all types of things. So I was like, um, I let like probably like two or three things slide, right? What I mean by I let it slide, I mean that I didn't react, right? I didn't say anything, I didn't beep at them. They would do whatever they did, they would fuck up, and I would just observe. And I would just, like they say in gnosis, you have to just observe. Things are neither good nor bad. They just happen. They just are, which that's really hard to do, but I understand it. And I was just observing things, but inside of me, I know that I was getting pissed. Shit was building up, right? I was like, because you know shit's building up when you're keeping track. You're like, that's the third time, excuse me, that I didn't do anything. That I just let this person, basically, I don't know if like make a fool out of me, but they just did whatever they wanted. They just passed right by me, or they were going slow or whatever, and I didn't say anything. I didn't beep. I didn't make a fuss. I just let it happen, like whatever. So I think when that other thing happened, right, when the guy did that, when he kind of like took me out of the road and whatever, uh that was like the third or the fourth time that shit happened. So that's why I got so pissed, right? I got pissed because of him, because of what he did, but I also got pissed because I was like, I have let so many go by that I'm not letting this one go by. I was like, fuck you, and I think that's the part where like you say, okay, you need to find the antithesis to this, right? Because instead of letting it build up inside of you, instead of saying, this is getting me pissed, this is getting me worked up, and now the next time someone does it, I'm gonna get fucking pissed and whatever, you should say, okay, this person, what's the antithesis to someone doing something bad to me? That I'm letting them, right? I'm allowing it. And maybe next time they're faced against some adverse traffic car or something, some type of traffic situation, they're gonna react peacefully too. They're gonna not react, right? They're just gonna let it happen. And you, how can I say it? You help a little bit. You help make the environment a little bit more peaceful, right? That I mean, that could happen. It could also not happen, right? You don't really know. But if you think about it, that kind of sets your mind in peace and balance, right? Because you say this motherfucker, but then you say maybe by doing this, I'm paying a karmic due, right? I'm paying my karmic account of traffic, right? Whatever. And that's actually a good thing, you know so that's kind of how you can uh think about this. Now, people are bad with me, but they will be good with others because I let that happen. You know what I mean? Like if they messed up with me, and I let it happen, maybe later when someone messes up with them, they're gonna, not make a fuss of it, and that'll create like a better traffic environment in the city. I don't know. So that's the antithesis to this thesis, right? That creates balance. Now we have a new problem. What happens when many people are bad with me? So now it's like, I'm keeping track of that. So now it's like someone fucks up and I think about it from a karma perspective and I create balance. Then it happens again and I create balance, and then it happens again and and I'm constantly doing this. What could be the antithesis to a high frequency? Because I've noticed that the thing that gets me pissed off is usually not like one or two or three times of a situation, right? If something happens once, I'm like, okay, I let it slide. Two times, okay, three, four, and then I'm like five, and then that's where my anger kicks in, because I feel like that's unfair. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are people doing? What the fuck are people thinking? You know? And that's when I get fucking pissed. That's when I'm ready to fight motherfuckers, right? So I think that I need to find and this is kind of like why I wanted to, talk about this, because I need to find like the antithesis to that, just like I need to find the antithesis to me trying to have people in my life, right? I've noticed this, and I think this is a secret in life. One sometimes, and I'm writing a book on this. It's called the Book of Problems and Solutions, and there are a lot of if when scenarios, some that I've had in my life. Well, most of them, kind of like tips. Um, and I actually talk about this, how when I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, when you like, oh yeah, I remember when you're trying to have something, or you're trying to achieve something, right? Like paradoxically, the more you want it, the less you have it, the more you push it away, right? So I think sometimes, and this is actually something I wrote. It's probably like as I wrote it. Sometimes the key to success is forgetting about what you want, right? So if I want to have a group of people, if I want to have like, people to hang out with that are like me, that are like-minded individuals that have the same values, the same level of commitment, the same level of integrity, the same level of benevolence, right? Then I need to not want it, but I need to forget about it, right? I just need to distance myself kind of from that. Um, yeah, because you would say, what's the antithesis to wanting to have people in your life? Well, not, or maybe forgetting about that. Also, maybe seeing things as how they are, right? Maybe you can just say, well, I I love my life, my current life. I'm happy the way things are, Um, you know, I have my girl. We do what we want whenever we want, we're living life good. So yeah, this like trying to have people in my life, I mean, there's been two moments in my life where I've had like a group, like a big group of people in my life, and both times those groups have just appeared out of nowhere, right? Like I haven't even manifested it, I haven't thought about it, I didn't say I wanted it, it just kind of like, it just, they just came. And excuse me, I think my want or my need comes from, you know well, first of all, from a feeling of like, I kind of feel like isolated in the pandemic and all this shit, and then also seeing how like people just, operate, you know everything, even the US government is now corrupt, because, and I understand corruption, if you think about it from a sociological or psychological perspective, it makes sense. You want to be around people you know. You're not going to hire somebody that you don't know. You don't know if they're gonna fuck up. They're probably gonna fuck up. They don't care about you, you know. And that's it makes sense why people won't, you know, integrate me into their groups. Why, like, I'm kind of excluded from all groups, kind of per se, right? It's really hard to get in with groups because groups are so exclusive, right? They only want their own benefit. They only want their own people in there, and sometimes they're not the right people for the job. Especially if you're talking about like the governments. You need to have people that know what they're doing. You need to have people that mm, that like that want to do their job, that like their job. Yeah, that like their job. I mean, I understand that we're not all gonna like always love every aspect of our jobs. I was talking to my girl about this just yesterday. Even if you, because lately there's this philosophy, it's been around for a couple of years, that says, find what you like to do and do that and charge for that, right? Work doing that so you never have to work a day in your life or some shit like that. And I say, yeah, that sounds nice and everything, even though the sacrifice in life is work, right? Doing work, doing something that you don't like, that you don't want to do, like work. That's your sacrifice for humanity. But yeah, find what you like, do it. But even if you find what you like and you're doing it and you're making money off that, there are still going to be things in the process of your work that you're not going to like. And that's your work. You can never escape work, even if you're doing, like I was giving an example of like a dancer. Imagine a dancer. They love dancing, right? And then they start dancing. They love putting on a show for people. They love practicing the routines. They love talking to other dancers, right? But they don't like traveling, and they have to travel for their shows, right? Actors, they love learning their lines. They love being in front of the camera. They love, I don't know, whatever, but they don't like doing interviews, right? Like for example, rappers. In my case, if I were to be a rapper, I would say I love writing music. I love I don't know, coming up with beats, right? I love making beats. I love talking to other rappers, but I don't like doing concerts. I don't like the recording process. I don't like having to repeat the same verse because I fucked up on a word or something, right? That's your work. That's your sacrifice for humanity. And this was actually the class that we had yesterday on Gnosis. He was saying that in order for a doctrine to actually make changes in your life, it needed to have three factors or three elements, which were uh, birth, death, and sacrifice for humanity, right? And I kind of understood, or in my sense, I always interpret things in my way. The sacrifice for humanity part is your work, because they say, well, sacrifice for humanity is like when you go out and you give uh, old clothes to the poor or food to the poor, right? Or like you sacrifice things for humanity, you give back, right? So your work, I mean, people don't like to work. You get money, but you don't like to do it. You know, so that's your sacrifice for humanity. You got to give back some way to humanity. You're gonna get paid, but you still don't like it, and that's your work. That's your sacrifice, right? And the birth and the death part, where it's just kind of like, like we've heard about this already. Like, well, the birth has a lot to do with like sexual stuff and sexual energies and things like that. And then the death part has to do with like he called it the Buddhic death, like from Buddha, which is like the death of like your ideas, right? Like kind of like Nietzsche, like deconstructing. So you let go of some things that you don't need. You purge your brain, your mind believes, your heart also, from emotions that you don't really need, or you reduce the intensity of them at least. um so yeah, this the antithesis to this, I think, is kind of how can I say it, still a work in progress for me, right? I still have to kind of look for it. I think the antithesis is actually just like being in the present moment, which they actually talk a lot about too, like actually taking in the present, slowing down, seeing where I'm at, who you are, doing the sol, which I talked about last Saturday, subject, object, and place, or lugar in Spanish. Who am I right now? I'm someone that's talking, for a video, for an episode of I'll wait, I'll do it on Monday. What am I doing? I'm talking to people about something that I learned, about some things that I learned this week, that I wanted to share and I wanted to work through my psychology. And where am I? I'm and kind of like in the deep sense, no, not just like I'm in some city or I'm in this country. Like I'm 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 at a happy place. I would say I'm at a place that has a lot of potential. My age, 31, is I was reborn at 30, right? That's why I'm kind of out there right now. Jesus, Jesus Christ, I think he started preaching out. He came out of the depths, we could say, from his Pisces stage from 26 to 30, into his Aries stage from 30 to 35. He was crucified, I think, when he was 32, 33, or something like that. So yeah, I'm at a happy place. I'm at a place full of potential. I'm at a place, with you guys listening to me. So that's cool. Um, that's kind of, I think, something I also have to work on, like my ego, because sometimes I want people to hear me. I want an audience, right? And I think we all want an audience. We all want to be heard. We all want to be like positively evaluated, right? I don't think anybody really wants negative feedback. But if you put yourself out there, you might get backlash, you might get negative feedback, that might be inevitable. So yeah, this social dilemma, I'm still working through it. I think I'm a little bit more relaxed now with it. Yeah, I'm not really like, you know, I think what makes you kind of hit reality, and my psychologist was saying this is actually a symptom of a schizophrenic person has such a huge need for something that if they don't get it, they will create it in their mind, right? They will hallucinate that they do it. And that's why he says that we see people like, bums in the street, like eating garbage because they imagine that it's like good food. Excuse me. Or like yeah, just the frustration inside a schizophrenic is so big that they create what they want. And I think for me, what it actually ends up doing to me is not, making me crazy, but it's actually making me see that, like as they say, reality, that I'm not going to get what I want in this moment, and just forget about it. Like you ask the universe, you already asked, the universe already knows what you want, God already knows what you want. um and just let his will play out, just let his plan play out. Like you don't have to be frustrated or fucking imagine that shit in your mind. Just let it happen. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's cool. But be happy with what you have right now. I mean, like that, not in the stupid cliche sense, but like really look at the things you have. If you're working, if you're making money, if you're eating good, if you have someone to love, someone loves you back, you have good things going, you have to really look at that, and focus on that. um so yeah, that's kind of where I'm gonna leave off on the social dilemma for now. And the last piece, the last point, the fifth point that I wanted to talk about is it's just something interesting. It's not even like I guess it's something to reflect on, or not reflect. In Spanish, it's called reflexionar. It's something to think about in English. Mm. So my question the other day, I don't remember when I thought about this. I don't know if it was this week or last week. I said, well, you know how they have like the war in I think it's in Sudan. There's a war in there's a war in Russia and Ukraine. There's the drug dealers war in Mexico. There's like a culture war in the United States. Well, that's not really a war. Um, Now with like weapons and shit, right? With people dying. There's a war. And there's like potential wars. Like there could be a war in Taiwan versus China, the United States involved. There could be a war with Russia, with the United States. Like shit like that. So I was like, bro, there's all these wars, right? And people always freak out when there's a war, acting as if we're coming from a time of peace, right? Like I hate it when people always say things are getting worse, or society's getting worse. It's like, no, it's really not. you know, we're just more people. So if like there are more people dying, is because there are more people, right? Like everything kind of has like a logical sense. Living in kind of like a big city, you kind of realize that, it's kind of hard to have order. So in a big city, I mean, things are gonna be messed up. I mean, I was telling my brother this the other day, like look at a map of excuse me, look at a map of population density of the world. The world is pretty fucking bare. I mean, there's like nobody in the world basically. There's a lot of people and there's overpopulation. And I used to believe in overpopulation. Yeah, like I say, I used to believe like it's a myth, like global warming and all this shit, right? Like, bro, the world has changed for so many years. It's gone through ice ages and hot ass weather, and people are like, oh, we're gonna destroy the earth. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, the earth, like, just let it be. And this myth of overpopulation, just because we cram up in one city, and we see a bunch of fuckers, and we're just like, holy shit, there's so many people nowadays in the world. And it's like, no, there's not. Look at a map of Russia. Russia's pretty fucking bare. There's no one in Russia except like on the west side, towards Europe. Look at a map of the United States. There's no one there except like in like the New York, Washington, Florida areas, and like the California, Texas, Arizona areas. The United States is pretty fucking bare, man. There's no one there. In Mexico, there's no one here except like in the middle of the country. Everyone's all fucking crammed up in there. The majority of the people in the world are in Europe and in India and in parts of China, but that's it. Besides that, like the world's pretty bare. So overpopulation is not really a real thing, right? And well, like all this, talking about all this, uh, kind of like took me to the fifth point, which was, has there ever not been a war, right? Like, has there been, like, honestly, right? Like, has there been a year in like, I don't know, in the last 2,000 years or since the Romans that we haven't had a war, like in the world, right? And I looked it up, and I guess not. It hasn't that. I guess like and this kind of surprises me because we're like, oh yeah, we have technology, we're such an advanced society, but we're still fighting like fucking animals. We still get we're still primates, right? We get fucking aggressive, we get pissed off, we fight, there's violence, right? There's wars, even though there's like a lot of diplomacy, you know, like in Star Wars. I've been watching Star Wars lately too. And yeah, they try to solve conflicts with diplomacy, but then they end up, you know, going to war and just, you know, straight up like killing each other. Even though they do it with robots, but yeah, people do die in those movies. And like, just like people die in real life, you know, like you go to war with a country over whatever, over territory, you know, like look at Palestine and Israel, right? Or like India and Pakistan, and you know, just people that hate each other, you know, for religious beliefs, for religious purposes, for territorial purposes, for, you know, just whatever. And that's crazy. That's crazy that there's never been a year in the history of modern world, and probably not like the classical world, that there hasn't been a war, right? We've always fought. We've always been fighting. We've always been fighting. Fucking humans, right? So this leads me to the interesting point. So the interesting point, that, you know, having lived in the US and in Mexico, I wanted to know how my people in both countries had been with the whole war shit, you know. And if you go to Google or Wikipedia and you look up like wars that the United States has had, or wars that Mexico has had, um, bro, there's like never a year that they haven't had, like that they haven't been like in some conflict, right? Um, like I think the most current conflict the U.S. has is probably like with I don't remember, some country in the Middle East, and Mexico obviously with the drug war. But you see all these conflicts from like the inception of the countries, right? Since their independence wars all the way to like, you know, World War I, like the United States. I mean, because you think about like the big wars, right? And you think those are the only wars. Like the only war the US has had has been like the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, you know, and then like the Iraq War, right? And like Korea and Vietnam and like world wars, and that's it. And then Mexico, it's like, you know, their Revolutionary War, their Civil War, and which is actually called La Revolucion, and then like the drug war right now, right? And that's it. And it's like, hell no. You go to those fucking lists, man, and you know, the United States has fought Mexico, they fought Spain, you know, like over land, over whatever. Mexico has been to war with Guatemala. um I think who else that they, well, and especially, and this is the interesting part, they've had a lot of conflict, both countries, with Native Americans, right? And this is just the part where I'm kind of like, bro, okay, especially in Mexico, because in Mexico, people are always like so proud of like, you know, the heritage, right? They're always like the cultural side of Mexico, like, you know, the natives, you know, and like and they basically say that like the Spanish came and like took over, like you know, and that was not fair, and that they started, you know, killing off the natives. And that's kind of like the rhetoric too in the United States. They say, yeah, the English came, you know, with the French and with the Spanish, and they started, you know, killing all the fucking natives. And it's like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, hit the brakes on that one. First of all, the natives were not peaceful, right? And they were not in a union, right? They were not together. They were always fighting each other. They were always killing each other, right? Always. So when they, so when the Europeans come to the Americas, they're really just another enemy on their list, right? And the Europeans were also fucking, you know, bellicos. They were also warheads. They were fucking fighting people too all the time. So it's like, yeah, it's not like they came and they like, conquistadores, and they conquered and whatever. I mean, I think there's a lot of truth in the fact that they came and they like exploited, the natives. They robbed the gold and all that shit, obviously. But you know they have their responsibility, their fault, their percentage of the fault. But the natives, is not like they were just like all holy here, like not doing anything, not fighting amongst themselves, and in unison and together, and preaching, you know um like kindness and good for everybody. So the interesting thing is that, like, excuse me, some of the earliest wars that the United States and that both Mexico had were actually with the natives, right? Both countries fought the natives like fuck. There's a bunch of wars on that list that you can just look up, and it's like the whatever war, the United States versus some native tribe, the whatever other war, the United States versus that other tribe, right? In Mexico, same shit. They were always beefing, right? And I was going through that list, and I was just reading like a bunch of fucking native names, but there was one that kept popping up, on both sides, just kept popping up. And it's the fucking Apache, right? The fucking Apache were the most, they were the most fucking brutal of the native tribes, both in the United States and in Mexico. They were the toughest motherfuckers to get rid of for both countries, right? And I think this is ironic, and it's fun and interesting to think about, because a lot of people, like especially in Mexico, they're always talking about how like unique like culture is and all this shit. And it's like, no, bro, the government was killing all these people. They were fighting them, and I think about how like the United States has this helicopter called the Apache helicopter, right? Probably based on these motherfuckers and how tough they were to fucking control and tame. I don't mean to say that like they were animals, but they probably were animals if they were the toughest motherfuckers to beat. So yeah, there's like a bunch of things that, if you look up the Apache Wars with Mexico, the Apache Wars with the United States on Google, you'll see that information. Eventually, the Comanche, because every great group, or every great you know military group needs to have his rival, right? Like the Romans had the barbarians. So in this case, the Apache had the Comanche, and the Comanche were actually the ones that kind of helped the U.S. and Mexico, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on this history, but I think that they helped out in defeating the Apache, right? I was watching this video talk about it too on YouTube. I think it's called something like that. Like the Apache were the most fierce warriors, or I don't know, some shit like that. And it talks about Geronimo, how Geronimo saw like the last of the battles right before. I think they either captured him or they killed him in battle. I don't remember what happened with Geronimo, but he was Apache. He was the leader. He was the last of the leaders of the Apache. The Apache actually still exist. They're still a tribe. Right? They're the ones that have like the kind of like the thing right here on their face, the line. But yeah, I think that's super interesting. I mean, because of that, because they say, oh yeah, the culture is rich and everything, and it's like, no, bro, like they were trying to like you know be done with these people. um so yeah, just I think we're gonna stop right here with our I'll do it on Monday conversation. um if you want me to talk about any topic, or later on chat about anything else, you can comment. Or even if you want to have a chat with me about something, with a cup of coffee online, we could totally do it. I'm more than open to that. So yeah, this is all I have for now. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.